What if the most romantic song of the 70s is actually a masterclass in psychological manipulation? We're deconstructing Hopelessly Devoted to You. Why we fall for the lie. Why does the world view this as romantic? Because the melody is a honey trap. Songwriter John Farrar spent 6 months agonized over this track. Why? Because he had to bridge the gap between the pure virgin archetype and the hypergamic shift. In the 1950s setting of Greece, Sandy represents the peak of her fertility. She's refined, educated, and disciplined. Danny Zuko is the bad boy archetype, unpredictable, high status in his subculture, and emotionally unavailable. When Sandy sings, "My head is saying, fool, forget him," she isn't just conflicted, she is experiencing the hypergamic paradox. Her logic knows he's a low investment partner, but her biological drive is screaming that he is the highest status male in her immediate environment. Let's look at the lyrics through the lens of female hypergamy. "I'm just a fool who's willing to sit around and wait for you." This isn't sweet, this is strategic patience. Sandy isn't waiting for Danny to change, she is waiting for her own internal barriers to break so she can justify the pivot. In social dynamics, women often test a high-status male's boundaries. Danny pushed her love aside, and instead of leaving, Sandy doubles down. The hidden meaning, the song is a ritual of self-immolation. She is burning the good girl version of herself. Remember those famous black pants? Olivia was sewn into them. She couldn't eat, she couldn't pee, she could barely breathe for days of filming. This isn't just a fun movie fact. It's a metaphor for the song. To get the top dog, Sandy had to be physically and metaphorically constricted into a version of herself that didn't exist. Hypergamy demands a sacrifice. Sandy's sacrifice was her autonomy. Is hopeless devotion love? Or is it a dangerous illusion? In modern psychology, we'd call this trauma bonding. But in the context of the 1950s, it's a masterclass in unhealthy attachment. Sandy is using her devotion as a weapon. By being hopelessly devoted, she places an immense psychological debt on Danny. She is saying, "I have suffered for you, therefore you owe me your loyalty." It's a transaction masked as a ballad. The final revelation, we look at the end of Greece and see a happy couple flying off in a car. But the song Hopelessly Devoted tells a different story. It tells us that for Sandy to win, she had to lose. She had to become hopeless. And in a world that prizes self-worth, that is the most unsettling revelation of all. Hopeless devotion isn't a romantic ideal. It's a survival strategy for a woman who has decided that the alpha is worth more than her own peace of mind. From innocence to calculated control. Here's where the story mutates. When Olivia Newton-John sang this in Greece, the tension was internal. The devotion was quiet, conflicted, almost ashamed. When Sabrina Carpenter covers it, the tension isn't internal, it's strategic. This is no longer a girl privately unraveling. It's a performer consciously curating desire. Sandy's version was about surrender. Sabrina's version is about manipulation. The aesthetic pivot. Sandy's arc was gradual transformation. Sabrina's brand evolution has been deliberate. Over the past few years, her public persona has leaned into hyperfemininity, flirtation, and overt sexual confidence as performance language. When she approaches hopelessly devoted, the vulnerability shifts tone. It doesn't sound like emotional desperation. It sounds like controlled seduction. That changes everything, because the original song works precisely because it feels like loss of power. When a modern pop star sings it from a position of full self-awareness, it becomes ironic, almost theatrical. The tragedy disappears. And what replaces it? Agency. In 1978, Sandy lowered herself to meet Danny. A pop star doesn't lower herself. She weaponizes perception. When Sabrina performs devotion, it doesn't feel like she's surrendering identity. It feels like she's amplifying it. That's the cultural evolution. The original narrative, I will sacrifice myself for love. The modern narrative, I will perform devotion because it strengthens my power. Devotion is no longer weakness, it's branding. And maybe that's the real evolution. Not hypergamy, not trauma bonding, but narrative control. The modern pop star doesn't get sewn into the pants. She designs them.